Well, the Trump administration is revealing new details about recent tariffs imposed on China, EU nations, Canada, and Mexico. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin appeared before the House Financial Services Committee today, and during his testimony, Mnuchin said that the U.S. is monitoring the impact of the new trade policy, but has yet to see real negative effects. For more now, we turn to the Hill. We've got CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe, who joins us now. Okay, Ed, you spoke with Paul Ryan earlier, who's recently voiced his concerns about the president's tariffs on trade. What did he have to say?
He said that he still remains concerned with what the president is proposing and that he's been hearing about it not only from constituents back home, but from colleagues here at the Capitol who are concerned about it. Although he said he still believes that there is no need for Congress to take action to stop the president from imposing these tariffs, saying he would prefer, for now at least, to work with the administration on easing these tariffs or perhaps not implementing them at all. Big issue of concern, of course, for him in Wisconsin. Not only is Harley-Davidson, the motorcycle manufacturer that's already been targeted by other countries under the gun and moving some manufacturing overseas, but he conceded that soybean farmers are also suffering in his state. Soybeans, of course, a major export to China, and there's big concern that by the fall, China may not be buying much of any soybeans from the United States, and severely affecting the economic health of a lot of farmers across the country, especially, frankly, in areas that are represented by Republicans. So, reiterating his concern, but still of the belief that there's no need for Congress to act.
I want to also ask you about Russia. We know that the president spoke at the NATO conference in Brussels about his upcoming meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. I want to play a bite for you.
He's been very nice to me the times I've met him. I've been nice to him. He's a competitor. You know, somebody was saying, is he an enemy? No, he's not my enemy. Is he a friend? No, I don't know him well enough. But the couple of times that I've gotten to meet him, we got along very well. You saw that. I hope we get along well. I think we get along well. But ultimately, he's a competitor. He's representing Russia. I'm representing the United States. So, in a sense, we're competitors. Not a question of friend or enemy. He's not my enemy. And hopefully someday, maybe he'll be a friend. It could happen. But I just don't know him very well. I've met him a couple of times. And when I did meet him, most of you people were there.
And I'm curious what the reaction is on Capitol Hill to those comments and what people are saying about his upcoming meeting with Putin on July 16.
Notable that earlier today, both the House Democratic and Republican leaders made clear they don't see Putin and Russia as an ally or a friend, and they see it still as someone, as a country that continues to meddle in American political affairs. The president's use of competitor is a departure from what he has said before, but clearly seems designed to acknowledge that there is bipartisan concern about what Russia did during our 2016 elections and what they are apparently still doing to try to upend the 2018 elections, but declining to go as far as other political leaders and suggesting that they are, in fact, working adversely against the United States because, for whatever reason, the president still believes he may be able to develop a good relationship with Putin. It was House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi earlier today at her weekly briefing who suggested that she thinks because the president continues to not go there, not go as far as she does and other Republican leaders do, that she is still convinced that there's something the Russians have on Trump. She didn't specify what it was, but she once again raised that specter of a possibility that perhaps they know something, they are prepared to do something, either related to what happened during the 2016 campaign, his business arrangements, or something else, but she declined to specify.
And I want to also ask you about Judge Brett Kavanaugh. He's been meeting with some key senators in his attempt to sort of win over folks before the confirmation process. What's the latest that you've heard on those meetings? How are they going?
He's had a few more today. He will with Republicans, including Deb Fischer of Nebraska, among others. Just checked with aides to McConnell. There are no plans as of yet for a date certain on when the confirmation hearings would begin in the Senate Judiciary Committee. But of course, the goal is still to get him confirmed and on the bench by October 1st. Notable that at least here on day 3, essentially, of his nomination, there have still been no meetings scheduled with Democrats. We shouldn't expect that quite yet. I think what you'll see is a push for Democrats to get the information, the documents that are related to his nomination, perhaps get a chance to begin reviewing all the paperwork associated not only with the hundreds of decisions he made as a federal judge, but the work he did during George W. Bush's administration, and perhaps even with the Ken Starr investigation during the Clinton administration, before they're really willing to sit down and talk to him. that's a stalling tactic. And that's basically the only thing Democrats can really do at this point, is slow down the train, not stop it from leaving.
That's exactly what I want to ask you about is, this is clearly the tactic the Democrats are going for. If they're trying to slow it down, is there any new evidence or anything new that's buzzing on Capitol Hill about the judge that could help them in that effort?
No, not yet, because in part they really haven't gotten the documents. The only thing that's come out is a Washington Post report yesterday that showed in his obligatory 2017 financial disclosure that he'd rung up some six figures in debt, partly because of his mortgage, which many people frankly have that kind of debt, but also because he'd purchased a fair number of tickets to the Washington Nationals Major League Baseball team. Big Nats fan, apparently. He'd had that debt repaid by friends who bought into the pool of tickets he bought. So I guess the only news there is that he's a big baseball fan.
Okay, all right. We'll take whatever information we can.
I can't fault him for rooting for the Nats because
I was just going to say. I was just going to say, we know you love your Nats there in D.C. I want to turn and ask you, though, about another interesting person in politics these days, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's really shaken up the Democratic Party. And we've now learned she's recently agreed to send some staffers to Delaware to help unseat third-term Senator Thomas Carper. Who is Carrie Evelyn, and why exactly is Ocasio-Cortez lending her support for her?
Sure. So this is just an example of the ongoing sort of battle within the Democratic Party about what it means to be a Democrat and who exactly should be on the ballot for Democrats this fall. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, of course, won her primary a little over 2 weeks ago in that Queens and Bronx area district, congressional district there in New York City, just a few miles north of you. She's now going around the country and helping out like-minded, lowercase socialists, lowercase Democrat, or Democratic socialists, depending on how they define themselves, who are of a similar mind, who want to see college, tuition-free college, Medicare for all, the end or the evolution and changes at the ICE agency, the ICE immigration agency, and people who are essentially trying to make ideological and generational change to Democrats. So this woman in Delaware, Carrie Evelyn Davis, has not raised much money at all and is challenging Senator Tom Carper, who is a three-term senator from Delaware seeking his fourth term. And what I learned yesterday is that now, as a bit of a thank you to Davis, Ocasio-Cortez is sending at least 3 paid staffers down to help her ahead of a September 6th primary. The thank you is because Davis and 5 of her campaign staffers drove up to New York just before Ocasio-Cortez's primary to help knock on doors. And so she's saying, well, look, if you're going to do that for me, I'll return the favor by helping you out. I suspect we'll see a little bit more of this among like-minded Democrats who are challenging longtime incumbents or running in open seats where Democrats have yet to pick a nominee, or who just feel the need to be out there making a point about the direction of the party. We shouldn't put too much stock in it, but it is notable that it's happening, and I think it's a sign of similar things that will continue to happen in the Democratic Party, not only this cycle, but going into 2020.
I'm just curious at what folks, the Democrats on Capitol Hill, feel about her movement in particular, because we've seen Nancy Pelosi come forward saying, big difference between Cortez and Pelosi, I should say. We've seen Pelosi come forward saying, look, it's not really this big earthquake in the Democratic Party. Right. And then you're seeing her sort of leading this new movement. Where does that stand?
Well, it's a modest movement. We're paying attention because it is so new and notable. Pelosi has a point. This isn't widespread yet, but I think that's what Ocasio-Cortez is pushing for, is to demonstrate that she was not an anomaly, that in fact there are Democrats who feel this way in Delaware, in Kansas, Michigan, and other states where there are similarly minded liberal Democrats running. The other thing we should point out, there's a bit of a tiff going on today, at least through Twitter, between Ocasio-Cortez and the man she beat, Congressman Joe Crowley. There are some counterclaims and claims that they haven't been returning each other's phone calls, despite assurances and agreements to talk about the future of the district and the future of her race. Crowley's people say they've tried to make contact. She hasn't picked up the phone. Ocasio-Cortez has suggested the same thing. I suspect you're going to see party leaders step in here pretty soon and say, you guys better figure this out, because the last thing we need is this kind of drama playing out when the Democratic Party is supposed to be focused on big gains, beating Republicans, and sticking it to the president.
All right. Ed O'Keefe coming to us from Capitol Hill. Ed, thank you very much for joining us.
Take care.